Hello, Patreon. I'm here to finally give you your mystical Q&A for March and April 2025. We only ended up with 3 questions for this Q&A, but they have some good questions that I'm happy to discuss. So our first question, for someone who also has ADHD and has shut off and slowly opening back up to, I guess is the best way to say would be medium abilities, ghost detector. What would be some tips or tricks to help focus when I'm trying to practice connecting with spirits again? Just an extra note from this person: they have a terrible time with attempting to meditate and visualize. Once they get to a place, their brain gets distracted and immediately pans out and away. Normally, they try to ground and balance using music, and that helps kind of, but anything else, kind of like a kid cracked out on way too much sugar. So, in terms of this question, I think first and foremost, when it comes to trying to develop or open back up those mediumship abilities, a good daily spiritual hygiene practice and routine is key and very helpful to establishing this quiet and focused headspace that we need for spirit communication, meditation, um, trance work, many other sorts of magical things. So what this hygiene routine kind of looks like for me, something that I take out of my teachings from my mentor, is a grounding, centering, and aligning exercise that you should do 3 times a day, if possible. So like morning, noon, and night. First thing you wake up, middle of the day when you kind of need to recenter yourself, and before we go to bed. So if that's something that people are interested in, I'm happy to record a second video of kind of what that process looks like for me and maybe recording something to help you establish that process. Some recording or video you could listen to or watch to help you establish this practice for yourself. Essentially, we would want to be grounding and connecting to the chthonic energies of the earth and allowing that to absorb anything that we're carrying from the day thus far, anything that is not serving us, anything that excess that we do not need, and allowing that to cycle with the earth and within ourselves, and also connecting to the celestial energies, and so on and so forth. Centering within ourselves, allowing us to really feel where our bodies lie within our space, physically and spiritually, and then aligning our energies and our spirits with where we want to go and what we want to do for the day, for the ritual, for the spell, so on and so forth. When it comes to meditating, when it comes to trying to find this quiet, focused headspace, you have to help find what things help quiet your mind, help shut out those little creeping in thoughts. Meditative music, um, binaural beats. If you have headphones, you could do a moving meditation through the park. Um, Something to quiet those random thoughts and something to focus in on, like our breathing, doing a nice slow, repetitive breathing gives us something to always return our focus in on. when we're trying to allow ourselves to recognize and perceive those communications when they come in. And it can be very difficult if we're not used to flexing that muscle of quieting out the world around us. Certain spirit communication exercises will work better for you and will give you better results than your mentor, your best friend, everyone in your that learns spirit communication communicates differently. Some people get taste, some people get smells, some people get visions, some people get words, some people see the ghosts in front of them, the spirits in front of them. And it's an ever evolving skill. So don't feel like you have to compare yourself to everyone around you just because you don't feel like you're a failure because it doesn't look like what everybody else is getting. Um, and just because one exercise doesn't work for you doesn't mean that another one won't. It's all about trial and error. It's all about really finding, well, what allows me to connect into that liminal space and really turn on that light bulb so the spirits know to find me and communicate clearly with me. Because many exercises that I've been taught will work, but the communication I get varies. And sometimes it's like trying to interpret somebody's chicken scratch on like a doctor's prescription. And sometimes it's like I'm being shown a movie in my head. So I have to practice. I have to notate what I did, how it turned out, what felt like it worked, what felt like it didn't work, and then keep trying, keep practicing. The mediumship development course here that we teach at Cat and Cauldron is 5 weeks, but it's not just you come, you practice for an hour or two a week, and then you're a medium in 5 weeks. It's you come, you are shown exercises and um, skills to practice and work with, and then you're expected to go home and do homework and do this multiple times between each class. So you are flexing that muscle over and over again and building up the stamina to do it because this is not something you can just jump into. Remember that it's not about clearing our mind. Clearing our mind is very difficult. It's hard to think about nothing. We're always going to think about something. It's about allowing yourself to quiet the thoughts and focus so you can recognize and pick up communication from spirit. When you found yourself drifting from that focus, simply bring yourself back. This is just like training a muscle. It gets easier with time and practice. And that doesn't mean you have to practice for hours a day. You set aside 15, 20, 30 minutes, a couple days a week, a couple days a month. Soon that skill will start flexing without you having to try to flex. So let me know how that feels, how that resonates, and if you'd like further guidance from there. All right. Second question for the Q&A. Is there a thing when trying to do a tarot reading for yourself? Like a reading on yourself by yourself, and it's almost like hitting a wall or staring into the mirror. I find when I try for myself, I just get info that I already know, or it just repeats back to me, play by play of what's already happened. No answers, no explanations. Is it possible you hinder or muddy it up? I I will say yes. I think it's absolutely possible to do that. I find often for many of my those within our community that reading for ourselves can often be a difficult hurdle to get over because sometimes there's certain situations we have too much information um, about the thing we're trying to read on. We are too biased. We are too informed. So therefore, if we sit with those cards long enough and we let our biases work their way in, we can very easily overshadow the messages we're supposed to be trying to receive. Often, another thing I will get is when I'm pulling cards for myself, I very much will see the message that I'm supposed to get from the cards, but I don't want to believe it or I don't want to surrender to it. So I will then feel blocked, blocked, or confused when really I'm just avoiding the answer. If the situation is important enough, always reach out to a trusted reader or a trusted friend that also reads cards or does other forms of divination to get you some clarity on that question that you're stuck on. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy. Sometimes we are stopping ourselves from progressing forward because we don't believe we deserve what's coming. We don't want to believe what's coming. There's so many, so many excuses. Um, that's the advantage of our community is that we should be supporting one another in these exact situations where our gifts are kind of getting in the way of themselves. But just to step out of that frame of thought for a minute, we are very powerful beings as witches. So the thoughts that we hold, especially around these situations that we are in, are very powerful. So if we go into a reading with loaded questions, expecting loaded answers or expecting certain answers and we don't see it, or we see something we don't want to see, we may be able to deflect or we're not impartial enough to just give it to ourselves bluntly as we need to sometimes. So, I think when you're feeling like you're hitting a wall or staring into the mirror, well, let's unpack that mirror. Does it feel like maybe you're just ignoring the answer? Like you know what you need to do, you just don't want to do it? Or is it truly not giving you an answer because you need to reach out to someone else to give you this guidance? I think it's either way. All right. Final question for the Q&A for March and April. Um, my question, probably a little loaded. How can one become the best, most powerful witch? I'm trying to discern what my great work is, and I believe, after much meditation, divination, and communion with Hecate, that this is one of the paths towards it. Any and all advice, insights, experiences are appreciated. Thank you. All right. Well, I think part of how we determine how you become the best, most powerful witch depends on what your definition of those words really means. What does power mean to you? What does the best, most powerful witch look like to you? Does power mean striking down all of your enemies with hexes and curses because they don't revolve their universe around your will? Or does powerful mean that you're knowledgeable and educated on multiple different facets and aspects of magic and witchcraft, with the ability to pull and weave all of those things together within a split instant? Power comes in many shapes and sizes, many forms, many archetypes. There are many different ways to approach this path, but as a Hekatean witch and devotee, I would say there are a few, not ground rules, but guidelines as to those that would be working more in alignment with her. I would say any of the most best powerful Hekatean witches are working in service to the marginalized and impoverished communities, the outcasts, those that have no one else. The best, most powerful witches have done the shadow work and done the religious deconstruction and uh, unpacking of that religious trauma that we carry if we have it, um, to step away from that fear of stepping into the power of being a sovereign being and understanding that I hold all of the power to do all of the things within me and just me. Implementing the learning you've done from books and classes into practical workings and developing that ability and that sense of what that power is that you really wield and how you can use that to influence the world around you, the world as a whole, those that need to have a lesson taught upon them, whatever that looks like to you. But we can't just slap the label of witch without incorporating a practice, because witchcraft is a practice. It is active, it is operational. So to me, the best, most powerful witch is always learning, is always working in service to those in need, is always educating themselves on what they need to learn, be it herbs, be it crystals, be it ethics. We may live in capitalist society, but that doesn't mean that you need to be an asshole and take advantage of people because they have a generational curse on them. That doesn't make you the best, most powerful witch. Um, I would say it's all about the journey, not that destination of best, most powerful witch. That best, most powerful witch, that goalpost is ever moving. It's never, I can claim this title and I'm there, I've done the thing, and I don't have to do the work anymore. It's it's a way of life. It's a way of living. It is in everything we do. And if we stop learning, if we stop growing, if we stop changing, life has stopped. Or we're living in a bubble because change is all around us and we need to continue to grow with that change. But that's just my opinion. That's just my thoughts. I'm happy to discuss further depending on how this resonated with all of you. So let me know in the comments, and I'm excited to do this again next month. Happy witching.